Well, welcome back to the second half of the show, and shortly we'll be joined by Umar Hurter. We'll be talking about he's a journalist with Muslim Views, and we'll be talking about his reversion to Islam, and also talking with Penny Appeal South Africa, the CEO Shiraz Parak, who's currently in Cairo. And later on in the broadcast, Liz McDade, strategic lead at the Green Connection, and this is. With regards to the calls to the South African president to stop all offshore oil and gas projects in the ocean. But right now, going to Cape Town and joined by journalist at Muslim Views, Umar Hurter. Brother Umar, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh and welcome.
Assalamu alaikum, my brother. Are you well?
Yes, doing exceptionally well. In
Good.
fact, just last week, you and I were together at the
Yes,
press briefing at the Hyatt with Dr. Matt Gilbert. And I must
yes.
say, it was an absolute pleasure meeting with you.
The same to me. And it was a fantastic exposure for all of us to this guy's the total determination and dedication to the sake of humanity and doing the right thing and being on the right side of history this time around.
Well, certainly, in fact, everyone's saying that, this is now the time where choices need to be made and people need to be at the right side of history. And I'm sure
Absolutely.
there's a lot that you at Muslim Views doing at this point in time, and particularly with regard to coverage on Palestine.
Yes, indeed. We do.
Right, Umar, let's talk about yourself. I want to talk about your journey.
All
And
right.
you are a journalist now at Muslim Views, but I know you've had a long association with the media as well. But just take us through, give us an insight into your life and to get to where you are at this point in time.
All right. I'm 54 years old. I embraced Islam at the age of 52, which is 2 years ago. So, Alhamdulillah, it's never too late. Um, I grew up in Namibia. I'm Afrikaans German. My dad was Afrikaans, Dutch Afrikaans, and my mom was German. So I speak German fluently. And I grew up in Namibia in a very white Afrikaans, as you can imagine, national party system, school system, Judeo-Christian. Um, Thinking back, Namibia was actually also occupied by South Africa, as is Palestine occupied by Israel. So the South African forces were definitely the occupying forces in Namibia. And then Namibia became independent in 1991 due to the influence of the UN and the Resolution 435, which then determined there should be a democracy and a one man, one vote. And then what happened is during this election in 1990, the people of Namibia voted and they voted the National Party out. They voted the South African government out of Namibia and they became independent, alhamdulillah. So democracy does work sometimes. um, as far as I'm concerned, is I was in the army. I was drafted by the South African government. I was drafted to fight against the Swart Gevaar or the Rooi Gevaar, the communists, where actually Cuba, Angola, Russia was actually helping the local people in Namibia to fight for their independence against the South African government. We all know about that part of the history in Namibia. And South Africa was in Namibia for about almost 26 years, which is almost interesting, the same period of time that America was involved with the Vietnam War. But in the end, one man, one vote, democracy determined who is the rightful owner of the country, and South Africa had to pack their Caspers and their Kufuts and all their buffels and stuff and get out of there. So Namibia has been independent since 1991. I was a corporal in the media intelligence segment of the army. I was actually involved in the border war in Angola. So I learned a lot about misinformation, disinformation, and how to spin the narrative so that you get the local people on your side, sort of by, indoctrination, how to get the people in South Africa to believe in your cause, although your cause was also a sort of a genocidal oppression of the local people because you want to install your government in another country, which is just atrocious. And by spinning the narrative and by being able to control the media, the South African government got away with this war in Namibia for a very long time. the people in South Africa thought we're fighting the terrorists. We ons beklei die terroriste. And in the meantime, the terrorists were actually resistance fighters fighting against the South African forces. As Hamas is not terrorists, they're resistance fighters. They're resisting the occupying forces of the IDF, or as Dr. Gilbert said, not the IDF, it's the IAF, the Israeli attack forces, not the Israeli defense forces. So yeah, I was in that war, and then the war ended in 1989, and I made it, alhamdulillah, alive, got out of there, but still indoctrinated, thinking I was fighting for the right side. And then I came to Cape Town, and I studied journalism in 1991 at Cape Technikon, and that is where I lived in the Boerkaap for a year in Lion Street in the Boerkaap.
Yes. Now, this is quite interesting. And when you speak about the spin, and that media spin still continues, and we see how prominently it still features, even with the latest with regard to what is playing out in Gaza as well, and right across the entire world. But a lot has actually changed in the media as with the advent of social media. And
Absolutely.
a lot of that spin is actually now starting to surface. A lot has been debunked already, almost
Yes.
immediately.
Yes.
Once we see that spin, and then immediately it gets debunked. And I'm sure you've seen a lot of it as well of late. And just looking at obviously Cape Town. And this, I suppose, this is where you mentioned the Boerkaap. Boerkaap has got a rich history as well in terms of
Absolutely.
struggle, in terms of apartheid as well, and all of that. And I'm sure that there are many people that you may have come across at that point in time, people who have influenced your thinking, your thought process. You mentioned indoctrination, and we know many young people were indoctrinated. But I suppose, you must have seen a lot of change in your life just merely by being in the Boerkaap, and possibly even meeting some people that had some sort of influence in your life. Uh, I think we've lost your sound. We've lost your sound for some reason. I'm not too sure if there's any. Okay, uh, just talk again, please, Umar. Now, I think we have lost you. We're going to try and see if you could just possibly reconnect, Umar. I think that would be the easiest. Yes, it's. We'll need to apologize for that again. Once again, that there was a loss of sound coming through. But it's actually quite interesting in terms of what Umar is saying, and I think there are many people in South Africa in that age category who today will sit and look back and look at how their thought processes, how their minds, how their thinking was actually influenced as a result of indoctrination. And this is an ongoing issue right across the entire world. But the difference this time around is in the old colonial era, there was no social media in terms of connectivity. We relied a lot on other forms of media. We relied on print media, we relied on radios, but again, who was in control of those medias? And you would only hear what they wanted you to hear. And the situation has changed. It's very, very different right now. I see Umar is back with us. Umar, I'm sure we can hear you. And,
Can you hear me?
yes, you may continue, Umar. Uh,
It was my wife calling. So that was it. I just quickly sent her WhatsApp and say, not now. Give me 20 minutes. I'll phone her back. Sorry, Ma for that.
Right, Umar. Yeah, no, we were talking about, your life in the World Cup, the
Mm.
people, how your thinking had actually changed, and if you could take us through some of these
Yes,
things that really impacted and influenced your life,
yes,
and had actually changed the way you thought, and also
yes,
to move away from the indoctrination that you
yes,
had undergone.
yes. Just to tell you that while I was in the army, I was in the army for a year and a half, and Namibia became independent in the middle of that year, which was my last year of army. So the South African Territory Forces disbanded, and there were 6 months left in the year. And I already made plans to go study journalism in Cape Town, but I had 6 months left of the year. And then what I did is there was a government tender sent out for a company to lift landmines in the north of Namibia. those were landmines placed by the South African forces against the SWAPO insurgents or the terrorists, the resistance fighters. And then I thought, okay, I've got 6 months left of my year. I've got no plans. What should I do? And I phoned them and said, I'm interested to lift these landmines. And me and a friend went up. We drove from Windhoek with a motorbike up all the way to the north of Namibia, to the Ruakana. That's in Kahukuland. And we started lifting landmines. I lived in the bush for 6 months. And we lifted landmines in the north of Namibia. I lifted about between 25 and 30 landmines per day. And for 5 days a week. And I did that for almost 5 months. And we came across, as we were lifting these, clearing these minefields, we came across a lot of carcasses of elephants and cattle and local wildlife that stepped on those landmines that would lose a leg, but they wouldn't die instantly. It would take them days to die. And that was the horror. That is the horror of war. That is the horror of explosives. So those landmines were called anti-personnel mines. They're about this size. So you just step on them and you lose the limb. Now, if I look at what's happening in Gaza and I see the consistent bombing, carpet bombing, and what's happening in Gaza, it takes me to a place that I did not want to revisit and to be reminded of. And I don't think people really realize the absolute horror of what's happening when these Israeli drones and Israeli bombs are carpet bombing whole civilian neighborhoods. I saw what a little landmine this size does. I can't imagine the horror of the Palestinians to sit in your home and you hear those missiles coming and you've got nowhere to run. But that's an illustration as far as my exposure to war is concerned. And that is why I'm so anti-war, so anti-violence. That is why I'm so, today, I understand where it comes from and what it does to people. And you might lose a limb, but the mental health, the impact it has on you, your whole life, your loved ones, it's on a level. Everybody talks about the physical scars, but what about the emotional, mental scars of war? And that is what people don't understand. But then coming back to Cape Tech, then I lived in the Boerkaap, and that was the first time I heard the adhan in my whole life. I was 20 years old. The haunting call of adhan, there was just something, and there was a seed planted because I lived in the Boerkaap, and that's my first exposure to Islam. I studied Cape Tech. I finished my journalism. Then I moved to Paarl. I lived there for a long time. I had my own newspaper and magazine. And then I met a lady, Afrikaans lady. She was my first wife. She was also very much Afrikaans, Judeo-Christian, very much into that mindset. And that fitted me because I come from that background. And what happened then is I was so indoctrinated and still in that whole, days. We moved to Oranje, the Volksstad, up in the north. And I lived in Oranje in the Volksstad for 2 years, thinking this is the right place to be. It's white, it's nationalism, it's Christian, it's my people, it's my tribe, it's my little Ubuntu. Can you believe it? I lived there for 2 years as well, still in that mindset. I came back many years later, still lived in the Paarl, and then, long story short, got divorced. I realized I wasn't happy. With this whole setup, and me and my wife, our paths, we diverged. And then a couple of years later, I met a wonderful Cape Malay lady, a Boerkaap lady, and through her, I got to have the total exposure that I so much desperately needed. I was like a desert waiting for water. I needed nurturing, the right kind of nurturing for my soul, my heart, my whole being. And I met this wonderful Cape Malay lady, a Boerkaap lady, and we married. We are together. We've been together for 9 years. And through her, I got to read the Quran. I started going to mosque. I started reading up. I started speaking to Sheikh Riyad Walls, well-known Sheikh here in Cape Town. I went to him for a couple of meetings and chatted about religion and spirituality, etc. But I told my wife, we were married, but we had a civil marriage. We didn't have a nikah. And I told her, you know what, I can't embrace Islam if I don't feel it. I need to feel it here in my soul. And it was difficult for her. We were married civilly, but not a nikah, not a Muslim marriage. But I said to her, I don't want to be forced to embrace another religion, you know, seeing where I come from, and to be forced because your culture says we must be married or religion says we must. I don't want to be forced. You know, being an army guy, you don't force me. I also want to have my own say in the matter. I needed to feel it here. And then in 2019, me and my wife, we went to Turkey. We went to Istanbul. And I went into the mosque, into Hagia Sophia. And I think that when I was in the Hagia Sophia in the mosque, we were there for about half a day, just walking around and just soaking in this energy and the ambience. That planted another big seed in my consciousness and my whole human beingness. And then we came back, but I still wasn't convinced. And then 2 years ago, on February, I had a most amazing dream, a divine dream of such magnitude that it made me phone my sheikh. And a week later, I did my shahada, and we did our nikah at his house. So I'm not sure if you want to hear about the dream I had.
Well, please, yeah, go ahead. In fact, you've got my interest. Allahu Akbar. It sounds fascinating, actually. So please go ahead. I'd like to hear about this dream.
All right. It's a precious jewel. I don't want to tell it to too many people because it's very precious to me. It changed my whole life, as you can imagine. But I went to bed one night and I had this dream, but it was so real that I almost felt like I was transported somewhere. Okay, let's be that as it is. In my dream, I was standing inside a mosque, a massive mosque, the size of Newland Stadium, but it was just me, totally alone. It was totally quiet, not a sound. It was just me, this massive open mosque, or open space mosque with a round dome, very much like the Hagia Sophia. And in this dream, the floor was different colors, swirling colors. And these colors went into the walls and into the ceiling. So I was like in a womb of slowly moving colors, like pastel colors, light green and light blue, peach, yellow, orange, light brown colors, but very quiet. And I felt the most immense peace that you can ever imagine. You know, peace with a capital P. It was so peaceful, but not a sound, you know. And I felt like, wow. And then suddenly I looked down and I was wearing a thobe and a fez. First time in my life, I'd never worn that before. And under my arm, I had a small little salah mat, a red little prayer mat under my arm. And I just instinctively, I knew I have to unroll this and I have to make salah. I have to pray. And as I took the salah mat and wanted to open it, it started growing to the sides. It just started growing by itself, you know, to the left and to the right of me, the whole size, the size of the mosque, you know, and it was, yeah, it was massive, like 100 meters, huge. I was still holding it, but it was this, like, you know, and then it started unrolling by itself, just in front of me. It just unrolled and unrolled and unrolled the whole length of this mosque, which is that size of rugby field, till it rolled into infinity and it disappeared into infinity, this massive red salah mat. And almost to say, like, you're welcome, come, this is for you. So it disappeared into infinity, and the quietness was still there, only me alone in this mosque, and this total peacefulness. And then I woke up. It was 3 o'clock in the morning. I woke up, and yeah, I knew I'm home. Alhamdulillah.
Wow.
This is the
Fascinating,
calling. I
really.
can't resist this.
No, definitely. Just, Umar, obviously time is of the essence, but very
Sure.
quickly, your
Yes.
life, since you reverted to Islam 2 years
Yeah.
ago, how did that change?
Well, it changed everything. I'm home, Alhamdulillah, at last. I'm 54 years old. I embraced Islam 2 years ago. I have meaning. I have mission. I have met my maker. I make salah. I I try to live a proper life. I read the Quran. My iman is strong. People say,
Alhamdulillah.
they say, Umar, we meet you and we see your nur. You're like a different person. You shine the light. What happened? And I tell them that I've embraced Islam, and I'm now, I'm worshiping the true creator of the universe. And it takes a lot of sabr because I need to learn a lot still, but I'm home. Now I'm on the journey of learning, and I'd like to start reciting the Ayat al-Kursi and Al-Fatiha. So it's difficult for me, the Arabic, because Afrikaans, German, but I'm getting there. I mean, this dunya is not for sissies, and we need the help that we can get. And if we follow the Quran, and if our ummah can stay strong, if our ummah can be united and help each other and drag each other forward and try not to divide, but unite and be the ummah that we should be. I've lost a lot of people in this journey. My family has turned their back on me. I've lost a lot of friends. I've lost my whole culture. Remember, I was 52 years old. I've lost everything. I'm almost only like 2 years old now. I've been reborn. But although I've lost my family and my friends that I had from my previous life, which is a very rough life, I've now become part of the Ummah. I've got a new family of 2.2 billion people. So I'm home, Alhamdulillah.
Well, Alhamdulillah, and obviously with Muslim views as well, giving you a lot more exposure as well as a journalist. And I'm sure a lot of it now reflects in your writing, in your articles,
Indeed.
and in terms of, just your outlook to the Muslim Ummah, what is taking place around the world. And also,
Yes.
I suppose, that alone has added so much value to your life.
And absolutely. As I say, I'm home at last. And you know what? I just want to say one thing. People that are born into the Muslim faith, you must know the privilege that you have to be born Muslim. There's nothing else like it. And although I'm so happy that I can be here in the last stage of my life. I don't know how long I'll be around, but that I've reached this stage and I'm home, Alhamdulillah. And people, please take your faith serious. It is all consuming. It's all changing. And I meet so many Muslim people, and I see the nur. And we are living the truth. We have the truth in our hands. It's a precious jewel. We must cultivate it and look after it carefully. And the ummah, let's just be one united ummah, because if we're united, nothing can break us. And look at how the Palestinians, how strong their iman is. Under the worst circumstances, they are being spiritually tested. And it's almost like they are so far ahead of us, being so spiritually tested. Their iman is so strong. Look at them, how they survive day after day. I don't know how they do it, but it's because of their iman, and their iman is strong.
Well, Umar, I must say, I'm honored actually to have met you last week, and I'm
So the
honored
honor is
even
mine.
to listen to your story and this interview that we're having this morning. And I'm sure it won't be the last, really. I think you and I will be connecting more,
I would hope
inshallah,
so.
going forward. But as I mentioned, time has unfortunately
Indeed.
run out, but
Indeed.
we could have go on for the better part of an hour, and
There's
I'm
lots
sure
more.
there's a lot more. But inshallah, we will at some point in time connect again. But for now,
I hope so.
Jazakallah for that, my brother. Jazakallah for your time. Allah Ta'ala
Walaikum
grant you
salam.
the strength, the ability, and the health
Shukran.
to continue many, many years. And I'm sure, Allah Ta'ala has chosen you for a very, very special purpose. And
Shukran so much, brother.
over over the years, inshallah, we will definitely see all of it materialize,
Shukran.
inshallah. But for
Shukran
now,
so
we
much.
thank you, and we ask you to make dua for us as well. Assalamu
I will.
alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Walaikum salam, brother. Salam. All the best. Shukran for the opportunity.
Ameen, Ameen. Yes, Umar Hurter with us this morning, and a fascinating story, a fascinating journey to Islam that we've just heard from a brother Umar Hurter. And this podcast will be shared. If you have missed it, you can actually get the podcast, and you can get onto Salam Media social media pages. The interview will be there. And with it, the time is just gone 9:41. We're going across to Shanaz Parak after this, CEO of Penny Appeal, who is in Cairo as we speak.